Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to today's live stream, and it is no April Fool's joke today because we are live with my good friend Abelard Lormond of Maze issue 1 and 2. How are you doing, dude? Welcome to the stream, and yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
I'm doing well, first of all. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me. Well, actually, just a little bit before this, we were talking about in terms of my writing hobby. I've been doing it since I was 6, but back then it was more kind of just doodling little pictures, writing quick stories. I would literally take pieces of paper and staple them together and everything, make little books. And then I started getting serious about writing more. So
what were those books about, though? I mean, let's break that down. Like, what type of writing and stories were you making around that age?
At that time, it was like little kids superhero type things. I literally had one called Super Bunny, and it was just a bunny who was like a superhero. He was just fighting bad guys and everything. But it was little kid stuff like that because I was into children's books at the time.
But I mean, it's really cool to see how at even such a young age you were like constructing these concepts that later evolved to you actually making books. I mean, so how has breaking into the indie comic scene been, from stapling these pages together as a young child to actually making a book? Like, how's that been for you in that journey with the steps along the way?
From there, it's kind of been more foreshadowing, I guess, what it would be later. And then from there it evolved into more seriously writing novels in middle school and high school days. And then I took one of the novels, which is Maze, what it is now, and I decided, since it's about superheroes and supervillains, to just team up with an artist and get to work on it. Because at the time, obviously, making a comic was ruled out because I can't draw. So I just remembered that, a lot of writers, they team up with an artist and they can't draw themselves.
Yeah, I could tell you from my experience, I can write a lot better than I can ever put up like a pencil to a paper. I mean, my drawing, I'd like to think it was good, but when I show other people, not so much. I definitely can get that. So who was the artist that you worked on with for issues number 1 and 2, and how was telling them your vision and having them translate that to to putting the designs on something? Like, how was that experience for you?
Well, I've worked with I found her on Upwork. It's a freelancing site for those who don't know, to find and work with freelancers or to be one yourself. But not promoting them or anything. But yeah,
no, you're fine.
I found her there, and then at first it was the standard indie comic duo. The artist does everything else that's not writing. So she was doing the art, the colors, the letters. And then eventually I decided that I wanted to expand the team and go for some edits also, which we just finished working on. So now I have a colorist that I found on Twitter. My letterer I found through my colorist because they were childhood friends. And then my brother, who also does art, he's the cover artist.
Dude, that's so cool to have your parts of your family in this too. I mean, how did that feel? I mean, because I'm sure your brother's seen you growing up and making these books, and now he's actually designing covers for you. I mean, that has to be an awesome experience.
Yeah, it's definitely cool to actually be able to talk to him right there in the same house. And he just walks up to me, shows me the progress on the cover that he's working on, and I talk about the future of Maze a lot with him, even though he's family still. I wouldn't give away spoilers, but yeah, it's pretty nice to have someone from the team actually that close to actually talk to about it.
Yeah, because you don't have to wait for like a email or a text. They can give you the feedback right then and there. That's pretty invaluable. So unfortunately, your Kickstarter for Maze issues 1 and 2 didn't meet its full funding. It looks like we stopped right at around 827 of 2000. How was that for you? I've never had a chance to really interview anyone after a campaign. This is one of the very first times I've done this. But how was that for you? How were you able to bounce back from that? Because for these type of interviews, I do like them to be kind of like a tool, like for other people in the future, hopefully other indie comic creators, when they listen to this, hopefully someone can take away some learning experiences from this, to help them kind of get through if they don't ever meet their goal as well?
Mm-hmm. For me, it was more of a during the campaign, I was at the start, I was kind of course, I was excited. I was I had a very giddy feeling about getting into it. And then it started to get a little complex and a little complicated to juggle with school going on, work, of course, also. And then as it started to kind of come to a close, I kind of had my mindset on maybe starting a comic publishing website where I could actually sell the books from without having to worry about the deadline and everything. Not that I gave up on Kickstarter, but just that I kind of had my mindset on that already. And when it comes down to it, I feel like it's more of a, it's not you failing completely because you didn't meet your goal, but you still gathered a fan base. Like you still acquired a lot of people that actually know what your book is, what it's about and everything. And then now they'll follow you wherever you go. So in my case, I'm already building a mailing list for when the website goes live next month. And it was because of Kickstarter I was able to
That's so awesome.
Many of those fans.
Yeah, I definitely think you have the mentality for this because I don't know, for me personally, that would have been, that probably would have been like, okay, I don't know what I want to do here. You're like, screw this. If I'm not getting my book out on this platform, I'm gonna make my own platform. Do you have a name? What's the name for it?
That I've actually been avoiding sharing it online yet.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll back it up.
Yeah, it's just copyright stuff. I don't want anyone to take it first and just
yeah. So before we break into any future plans, let's go ahead and start breaking down issues 1 and 2. So issues 1 and 2 is about two children that join a group of vengeful supervillains to get help finding a man to find their dad. That is such a gripping concept. Let's break it down. Let's break down the brother and sister.
Yeah, they're twins. So yeah, they're brother and sister. Basically, they had a history of domestic violence, and then the mother was actually beating on their father. And then the police came in and they quelled the quarrel and everything. But in doing so, they actually found the father's drugs that he was using to cope with the trauma. And so they took him in also, but the twins can't remember the face of the man who took their father. And then they get met with the option to actually join a group that actually specializes in finding people, but come to find out that it's also a group of vengeful villains that are after heroes who have wronged them in the past.
So what does this do to the morality of the brother and sister, having these children team up with supervillains? I'm assuming that they don't want to just be supervillains themselves. So what type of conflict do we see within that?
I'm going for more of a slow start thing where it's going to be realistic in that they're going to come in. Obviously, that's going to be very extreme. They're going to think they're definitely way in over their heads. But as it goes on, we'll we'll start to see them sort of fall into it bit by bit. Because at the end of the day, if you're in the group, you kind of have to be doing what they're doing, and that is going after heroes, killing superheroes, essentially. And that's how they're going to have to find their dad, but they don't really have any other options. So we'll start to see them slowly slip into acquiring the habits of the Maze group.
So what are some of these habits they're going to start acquiring? What type of crimes will we see them commit? I guess what type of lifestyle are we going to see these pairs start to develop before they find their father?
Well, without even beating around the bush, killing superheroes just like everybody else will. But there'll be more mission-oriented people in the group. I have 2 sets of because everyone is in pairs because of the power system. But there's going to be 2 sets of duos that are just straight up evil, just to be evil, just kill superheroes because they're evil.
So what type of superheroes are you going to have in this universe? What type of inspirations? Who are we going to see dying on the battlefield?
Well, I have the point is that the superheroes, they have wronged them in the past, as I mentioned before. So we're going to have imperfect superheroes, and we'll have some that are just straight up dirty, just outright, just immoral. And then we'll have some that are genuinely good, but maybe they might make a mistake here and there. And it could be a battle with a villain. Someone was a casualty, and that casualty happens to be the family of one of the maze members.
Okay.
And that's why they're upset about it. And yeah, basically a mixture of good, a little imperfect, and then just straight up dirty superheroes.
I really love this flashback. You know, for me, a big turning point, I feel like, in like the movies, like with comic book movies, when you see the fallout from these battles and like the casualties that happen on the street level, like not just the superhero fighting the villain, but like, you know, the aunt that got killed, and how that affects, like, you know, the family, and hearing that you're gonna have that included in this universe, like that's awesome. How complex is that type of story building though? Like to go that deep with it, to build that type of world, like how hard was it for you to start coming up with, I guess, the backbone for Maze as a whole?
For me, it was more of a because I knew I always wanted to write something about supervillains, but initially I was gonna do it where they were just supervillains who were evil just to be evil, killing superheroes. But then I decided, how many things in superhero media do we see where we start to understand the villain once we actually hear their backstory? So I just took that, and instead of making it a thing that we hear about later, just bringing it to the forefront, bringing it right in front of people and saying, this is what we're going to be focusing on. And if anything, the superheroes are going to be the background people. Not to say that we're going to hear everyone's backstory right up front, because that would just cram in a lot of exposition right there. But I have ways to drop everything in here and there. You'll have more quiet villains that, when you finally hear their backstory, it's like I definitely see where you're coming from here.
Yeah. So
after
I mean,
heroes.
what influences do you take, breaking the mold? I mean, this is something that a lot, you know, you do see some books dance on this line here and there, but you're just full sending it. I mean, what goes into it? I mean, making these guys just be ruthless and just murdering and everything, but yet have like a sense of, you know, humanity in them that are going to make the readers, like, I guess, resonate with them and like their character, even though they're doing these bad things.
Basically just taking natural human instinct to, I guess, be quick to anger, because of course we're not perfect, so being quick to anger, but kind of just multiplying it to the point where they're willing to literally kill to actually get their revenge. And also the fact that in the story, the government does everything in their power to make sure that the heroes stay in good standing. So that just makes it even more infuriating for the villains. There's a lot of laws that are set in place. I have 3 big ones that are literally set in place just to make sure that the heroes kind of just get a little slap on the wrist and then just brush everything under the rug.
Do you want to talk about them, or is that kind of a secret?
One of them is, I can mention one of them. One of them is literally called I called it the GRP Act, which is the Good Reputation Preservation Act. And it's basically a whole thing where if a superhero is fighting a villain and a casualty occurs, the hero, they either rarely actually lose their ability and their jurisdiction to do any superhero work. But other than that, they take a 6-month hiatus where they have to kind of undergo superhero training again as if they were new, and then they can come back to doing heroics. But it's rare that law is even really even goes against the superhero. And I have a scene where the villains are even talking about just the name of it. It's not even called anything to favor the victims, but it's called the Good Reputation Preservation Act, meaning that it only cares about the reputation of the superheroes. No,
I really am enjoying this type of world building as well. You could really start I am starting to feel resentment towards the superheroes already, just hearing about it. I mean, it has to be infuriating having them just kind of get let off the leash anytime they do anything bad without much repercussion. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of Hancock. With Will Smith, how he was a superhero and he was drinking all the time and really didn't have much repercussion, like, because he'd go in jail and just jump out if he wanted to. Yeah, that is also these super villains. We're gonna end up liking them, or is it gonna be mixed and matched? I mean,
yeah, mixed match. Definitely.
Yeah.
There's gonna
No,
be
that's
the
so
ones
cool.
that you like, some of them you might hate.
So let's with issue 1. What happens with issue 1? Where do we start off with the introductions with the brother and the sister? You know, how does this all end up happening? Where do we leave off after their dad gets busted and taken away?
So we start off with the flashback, and then we go into their lives, their current day lives. Excuse me, their current day lives where they're living as runaways, and they're staying in warehouses, going from warehouse to warehouse, just to have bedding and, you know, living on their own basically. And then at some point in the story, they come across the opportunity to actually join the Maze group. And so they're skeptical about it, of course, because it kind of comes out of nowhere. But then eventually they go forward with it. They write to them, and then it's hard to explain certain things, like thinking about spoilers also. But they go for it. They write to them, and then eventually they're just going for it basically. But they're kind of easing into it basically.
Yeah. And you could see why they would want to join them too, like starving, not having shelter or anything. That definitely had to be very taxing for them as well. With issue 2, what happens in issue 2? Like, I guess let's start building the blocks for issue 3 for our listeners. So issue 2, they're already with the super group. Is this where we start to see them kind of start doing their evil bidding?
Issue 2, they're not there quite yet, but they're because with the group, there's 3 prerequisite exams that they have to do that are essentially training for them, but also the group seeing how skilled they are already. There are 3 exams with 3 different topics. The last 2 ones are I'm going to keep a secret for now.
No, that's fine.
They're pretty big. And then by issue 5, the group is actually finally together after those exams. Okay.
So yeah, that's definitely awesome. And then I'm trying to remember, was issue 2 the one with the FBI cover?
Yeah, that one.
I really loved the way your brother, I'm assuming, did that cover as well.
Yeah.
The way he did the coloring. What was the purpose of that? You know, did we see these supervillains take over FBI costumes?
That's part of the second exam. That's actually a hint for what the second exam is.
All right, I got you. So we won't spoil too much on that one. Yeah. So now we are, you know, we came to the Kickstarter, we came to your plans. So what all are we going to see on this new publishing label that you're going to create? I know we talked about it before the interview, but now that we are recording in live, you know, what are we going to see for the future of where you're going to go with Maze issue number 3 and all your future works?
For now, I was going to focus on marketing Maze itself. I'm going to do issues 1 and 2. I'm still the same way I was doing the Kickstarter. I'm going to release the 2 on the site together and suggest buying them together, because at the time that I was writing issue 1, I was more into novel writing. So it's more prose and more dialogue, but issue 2 onward is going to be more action. And then I'm going to do issue 3, issue 4, and then by issue 5, I'm going to actually put them together into the first volume. And then after that, then I'm going to start opening submissions to take other works. And I'm also going to have other works that I'm working on myself. I have 3 other stories that I'm planning on writing. 3 different genres.
Yeah, let's go.
But for now, Maze is definitely my main priority.
So any of those other stories you want to touch base on, or are they all under wraps right now?
For now, one of them is actually the most elaborate. The other 2 are I kind of just have an idea of what I want to do with them. One of them is a little bit more elaborate. That one's going to be more it's going to be a superhero type thing, but it's going to be more realistic and gritty, and it's also going to be romance mixed in there. I also have another story that I'm going to have as romance, because I've been wanting to write romance comics for a little bit. I'm surprisingly, for someone writing about supervillains killing superheroes, I'm actually into romance.
He has a loving side. Let's go.
Yeah. And then I also have a third one that's going to be science fiction.
Okay. Hey, Blinks, welcome to the stream. How are you doing today, man? We are here with our good friend. We're talking about Maze issue number 1 and 2 and the future of issue number 3 and so forth. So let's go ahead. I'm really interested in the nitty gritty superhero side of things. So what drove you to want to go on the other side, the other side of things, go from the superhero side of things, from killing them to actually living in their shoes now?
What do you mean for the other story?
Yeah.
For that one, it's more of a. Initially, I wanted the superhero thing to be a more background thing, a background aspect of it, but it was going to be more of a romance novel. But yeah, it's just
so kind of like he's trying to do like a relationship and like then missing all these dates because he's a superhero dude type of deal.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, dude, I'm definitely digging that.
Yeah. It's actually I'll explain the synopsis a little bit. I don't want to get into spoilers with that one also, but it's basically the main character. They're a vigilante called Night Stalker, and Night Stalker is also the name of the book. But they're a vigilante by night, and then by day they're actually a employee at a coffee shop that the sergeant of the most critically acclaimed sergeant of the town, I actually forgot what I called him, but it's going to be a romance in that they're together, but the sergeant and the vigilante, they're going after a criminal organization, but the sergeant doesn't know that his partner is the vigilante, and he doesn't like the vigilante, but they're kind of crossing paths on the investigation together, but the sergeant doesn't know that it's actually him, basically. You ever
play a game called Detroit Become Human?
I haven't played it, but I watched one of my friends play it.
So that reminds me of Connor and Hank's relationship, how he hates the androids and he's getting teamed up with an android. Yeah. I mean, a little bit different because, your character doesn't know, but just hearing that dynamic of the relationship, that's awesome, man. I'm stoked for that.
Yeah.
And you got two other ones under the works too, but yeah, let's go back to Maze. So with issue 3, what do you want to talk about? Is there anything you want to talk about, or are you trying to keep the whole thing under wraps?
That one is a little more secretive. It's like as we go on with the issues, it gets a little bit more secretive, but I will say that one is going to be the most action-packed from the 3 so far. Okay. I was actually just writing one of the fight scenes from it, but it's definitely gonna be a good one.
Blink says it sounds like him missing all the dates he don't get because he's always being the hero of the lighthouse. He loves the theme though. Yeah, we appreciate you stopping in, man. Thank you as always.
Thank you.
So it was really interesting to hear your perspective and your thoughts on Kickstarter. I guess just overall, how did you feel about that platform? To anyone that's kind of like, I guess, on the fence about doing it, did you feel like it was an okay platform? Like, where do you felt like the issues were with the campaign?
I would say when it comes down to it, definitely be ready for a lot of marketing. Not to the point where you get too annoying online, but definitely be ready for the marketing. In my case, I don't want to tell anyone not to do it because it's gonna get difficult or it's not realistic. I don't want to push anyone away from that, but in my case, it was more trying to juggle it, like I said, with school and with work going on. So definitely.
And what did your typical day look like, with work, school? Like, how many hours did you have to do that and then try to juggle this in between that?
It was at some point as it started going on, it unfortunately started becoming more school, and it was me even focusing on this, and it kind of became an afterthought, which could also be another reason why the marketing kind of slipped away from me. But definitely I would say not to treat it as an afterthought and to think of it as I don't want to tell anyone to not care about work, but treat it as a top priority, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, the big thing too is school. I mean, school costs money, realistically. School is something that, is going to carry you through life. The comic will as well too. But at the end of the day, I don't think you made the wrong choice because it drove you to creating your own platform. I'm a big believer in a lot of things do happen for a reasoning. You're still in school, still doing the thing, and you're making a whole publishing platform on your own. Yeah. When if this would have just got funded, you would have just had Maze issue number 1 and 2 out there. But, in the end, it cultivated into something far greater than, you were probably even expecting. And I'm a sucker for people who are able to just rise through the ashes and come out stronger on top. Like that's so awesome. Now, when can we expect to see this platform created to be able to get issues number 1 and 2? What is the roadmap for that? What type of price are we looking at for the individual issues or the package for both of them together? And you also mentioned you wanted to go physical only. So what was the reasoning behind that as well?
In terms of the platform itself, I'm planning to launch it next month, hopefully sometime early next month. I'm actually having the logo made up for it right now. And then for pricing, I haven't thought about pricing too much yet because obviously it's going to be a little different from Kickstarter. And then for physical copies, I decided that I wanted to kind of take it back to the old days when my brother and we used to go to comic book stores, collect comics. I have like a whole stack of physical issues up here that I read so long ago, and I don't really actually collect comics anymore. So I don't know. It's just that nostalgia for me. I actually just want to get the books into people's hands.
No, I love having a physical. There's nothing that, I was just talking to my friend earlier, Catch the Craze. I think you worked with him previously as well.
Yeah, I was listening to.
Like, I love a digital copy, don't get me wrong, but there is nothing that compares to actually seeing it on a paper and being able to turn that page and the smell. I don't know if it's weird or anything. I love the smell of a new comic book.
I was going to say that too, but yeah, honestly, the smell.
He's like, I didn't want to go there, so you went there, so.
Yeah.
No, dude, there's nothing that really compares to the smell of a brand new comic book without a doubt. I'm excited, man. I definitely want to get my hands on this. It looks and sounds like such a crazy concept, and like, I'm here for it. We have 2 young kids fighting for their dad. They join a group of supervillains. What more could you want? So let me ask you this, because we came to one of my favorite parts of the interview as well. For those who are struggling to kind of get their idea to take off, to kind of get their vision onto paper, for anyone struggling in the indie comics industry, what would you offer to them as a piece of advice to help them push through? I mean, you've been doing this since you were 6, so I mean, you definitely have been doing it for quite some time. What would you say to them to help push anyone through that's struggling?
There's a lot that could go into it. One thing that I would say, as I was saying before, is even with whatever else is going on, whether it be school, work, family, it could be anything, definitely always make sure to find time to write. It could be at the top of the day, it could be during the day. I literally work on my comic at work. I wouldn't say to
let's go, dude.
But
that's the work ethic you need, though, man. That's what you need, dude.
And then end of the day could be just definitely find time to write, draw, whatever it is that you do. The team, I would say, could come in a little bit later once you actually have everything together, world building, characters, of course, backstories, and definitely getting together a team. Don't try to take on everything yourself, especially with comics, because it's many different jobs. It's writing, it's editing, it's drawing, colors, letters, everything. And yeah, I kind of just touched up on the third one that I would say is to world build and to have characters and their backstories and everything set in place before you even start writing a script for it. Okay,
yeah, dude. And some phenomenal pieces of advice, I would say. Definitely knowing what you're doing is going to be key. And I think you're right on the dot with it. Like, just everything I've heard so far, it all, like, in my head is just like starting to come together. And I need to get my hands on issue number 1 and 2. I'm excited for it. I definitely wanted to check it out. What really just rang out the most with me is working on it while at work. Like, when I remember the days when I was on another podcast that actually, so I was on something called Talk Geekly, which eventually came to me just being me keeping it geekly. I was reading comics at work on lunch. So I was eating, reading comics, and coming up with like a script while I was like, because we would have like an hour lunch. So I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to work on my podcast like every day. And it's that work ethic that eventually evolved into this, I mean, so like, yeah.
And look where you are now.
Yeah, dude, let's go. So real quick, what social media platforms would you like to give a quick shout out? I did my best from your link tree and put all the ones that I seen, like your Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But anything else that you want to give out to our audio listeners?
That's pretty much it. Yeah, on Instagram it's my name, which I have here, but just without the space. On Twitter it's the other way around, so it's Lormond Abelard. And then Facebook, I don't use Facebook too much. I think it's Abelard Lormond also.
All right, so be sure to give him a follow, like, and whatever you do on Instagram, heart it, follow, I think, stay up to date with what he's doing with issue 1 and 2 and issue number 3. Big shout out to Abelard for coming on to the show and keeping it geekly with us. Blinks, I really appreciate you in the chat, keeping it hyped for us as well. With that being said, guys, we are going to be taking off. Have a fantastic April Fool's. Stay vigilant out there, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.